Hey, good morning, everyone. I was just about to say good afternoon, but it's still kind of 5 minutes to go. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the second Instagram live that we're doing with Rosie from our helpline. We're just gonna get sort of warmed up a little bit and just wait for everyone to come. But thank you to everyone who's joined so far, and we're going to be doing a bit of a Q&A again today. Yeah. It's been just over a month, I think, since we last did we last did our first one, and it just feels like so much has happened in the world. I don't know, since then. It's just been really crazy, isn't it? So we hope everyone's doing okay in these sort of quite challenging and difficult times. And we're here if you need to talk about anything about epilepsy. We're here to support you. So Rosie, you've been on our helpline this morning, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been really busy recently, which is nice to chat to a lot of people. And there a lot of people confident calling us is really lovely as well. Yeah.
Definitely. It takes a lot to pick up the phone, I think, just to make that call.
Yeah, definitely.
Literally. But this is why we kind of set up the Instagram lives as well, because it's not just about picking up the phone. Sometimes you just might just want to chat and talk to other people and just see what other people are asking. So we want this to kind of be your space as well, as much as the usual ways that you can get in touch with us. So the last time I saw Rosie, apart from just now, obviously, you were wearing a bright yellow vest, and it was on Sunday, and we were at the Bradford 10K that we recently held, our Epilepsy Action Bradford 10K. So how did it go?
It was amazing. So many inspirational people there, which was just great to see.
Definitely. It was a really good atmosphere, because we weren't sure if it was going to be able to go ahead or anything. So apologies if you can hear any noise. We're in Epilepsy Action HQ today, and there's all kinds of building work going on. So if there's any noise, just ignore it. We're going to carry on. But it was a great atmosphere, wasn't it?
Yeah, and how lovely everyone was.
Yeah.
The runners, I don't know how you run that far and are still, it's just completely lovely, because I think I'd be very stressed at the end of it.
Yeah, it just, I think, and just seeing people out after so long, because we've had to cancel it for the last 3 years because of COVID. So thank you if you're watching this and you came out, or you are doing anything to support Epilepsy Action in any of your fundraising or any runs that you're doing or anything like that. It means a lot. It means we can keep things like these lives going. So thank you. So should we get going? I think if anyone's joining us, we're going to be doing a Q&A for the next half an hour about anything epilepsy. So just comment in the box below if you've got any questions, and then we will get to them as soon as we can. So I think one of the first questions we've got asked is kind of, what's it like transitioning to a new medication?
Okay. It's difficult to say, because everybody who takes epilepsy medicine is affected in such different ways, and some people transitioning to a new medicine is really easy and fantastic, and other people might experience side effects or might have difficulties with it, and it's really hard to say if you're going to be impacted or not. One of the most important things to just take into account is to just follow the guidance that you're given by your doctors as closely as possible, because they're really going to take into account your experiences in each individual and give you the best advice. Following their guidance, looking after yourself is the most important thing.
And I guess just making notes of how it's affecting you, if you're spotting any particular side effects that you think you want to talk about at your next appointment.
Side effects can be a difficult one, because often when you get put on an epilepsy medicine or any medicine and you see the side effects, and it's so scary to look at that huge list.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So it's important to take into account that not everybody is affected by side effects, and if you are, it doesn't have to mean that you're always going to be impacted by that. Some people find that their side effects die down or stop altogether after being on a medicine for a certain amount of time. But also, if you are struggling with them, you can talk to your neurologist, like you said. People will listen to your experiences, which is important to take into account.
Definitely. And I think everyone's epilepsy is so different, so just because you hear of someone having a difficult experience on one, it might not necessarily mean that you will have that same experience.
Definitely.
But talk about it, if it is affecting you, and if you do want any more information, then do give us a call, or there's plenty of places you can talk to other people about stuff. So if you're just joining us now, we started our second Instagram Q&A live with Rosie from our helpline. So if you've got any questions that you want us to answer, just comment below and then we'll get to you. I think if you joined us on the first one, we were having a few technical glitches, weren't we? But so not all the questions were coming through. So if you did join us on the first one, please ask again, and then we'll get to you as soon as we can. I think another question we've got sort of that we hear about a lot is not medication. Sorry. So any other things, any other treatments as well as medication? Obviously, there's the ketogenic diet, but I don't know. Is that more for children or adults? Or?
So it's recently changed a little that sometimes it can be prescribed or suggested for adults who have epilepsy. But the keto diet is often more likely to be prescribed for children or for people with certain types of epilepsy. The most common treatment for epilepsy is medicine. Yeah. And sometimes it is a bit of trial and error for find the right one for you. Mm-hmm. Specialists then might choose to look into different treatments. So there's things like brain surgery, VNS, and also it's called deep brain stimulation. So there are different treatments, and just because an epilepsy medicine isn't working for you doesn't mean that's the end of everything. But your neurologist will look into that with you and see what's right for you. They'll see if, say for example, brain surgery is the right way forward, or if they think that you'd find VNS more helpful. So VNS is vagus nerve stimulation. Sorry, if anybody wants to look at that.
Is it a small device that's sort of implanted just here?
Yeah, it's a small device that's kind of similar to a pacemaker, and it is connected to your vagus nerve and aims to try and reduce seizures. And for some people, they find it really effective. If you'd like to read about it, we do have a lot more detailed information.
Definitely, on our website. So if you want a vagus nerve stimulation, then and head to our website. Talking of kind of treatments that you just mentioned, Sarah's asked, when is cenobamate going to be available as a new medication? I think it's recommended for use by NICE in some cases now, but is that on the new one?
We're getting a lot of questions about that, and it's a difficult one to answer because it's so different for everybody, and different neurologists will prescribe it for different people, and we know that some people have funding for it and other people might not, necessarily, depending on the type of epilepsy they have and how they're affected. So a lot more is coming out about that at the moment. But we wouldn't be able to answer sort of a general answer for that one because it is so varied depending on
where you live person. And each person.
Different people be eligible for it and not. And it's something that if your neurologist feels as though it would be helpful for you, then they'd be the ones you'd be able to ask that question to. Whereas we wouldn't be able to sort of suggest if it was or wasn't something that would suit you or would be available for you. But we have had a lot of questions about it, and it is something that's cropping up.
And I think it's sort of one of those new and emerging drugs, so there's still a lot to I guess it's just working out and seeing how that works. But we do have an article on our website, so if anyone has heard of it and wants to find out more, then if you look at cenobamate on epilepsy.org.uk, then you can find out more there. But it's good to know you're getting calls on it. It shows word's getting around, I guess.
Which is great, and we're definitely, as you said, getting learning a lot more about it, and writing articles and things, which is great. And it's good that people are reading it and want to contact us about it. And we are learning more and more, which is fab as well.
Definitely. So if anyone's got any questions, if you just tuned in, we're having a bit of a Q&A session. I'm having a bit of a chat with Rosie from our helpline. Epilepsy is such a huge topic, so if you've got any questions, there's no, just drop it in the comment box below, and then we'll come to you as soon as we can. I've got another one here from Natty. Thank you for asking, Natty. Best medications for pregnancy.
That's another very difficult one. Epilepsy medicine. So there are some epilepsy medicines that can affect, or possibly could affect somebody who's pregnant. and it all varies on the epilepsy medicine that you might be on when you start. So for example, some medicines we may know that they might not have such an impact on somebody who's pregnant, like lamotrigine, whereas there's other epilepsy medicines like sodium valproate that we do know may impact somebody's pregnancy. And it's something that we always recommend to talk to your neurologist about, even if you feel as though you've checked it and it doesn't seem as though it affects your pregnancy in any way, which is great. It's a good idea to just learn about it. If you do get, if you are planning on getting pregnant, it's a really good idea to look into preconception counselling. They'll be able to talk to you about the medicines that you're on and if they possibly need to get changed or altered in any way, and work with you from there, which is great, and that's definitely available for you. But yeah, some epilepsy medicines can affect some babies, and we do know that, and it's a good idea to look into it.
Yeah, and we've got an online tool that for medicines in pregnancy that you can use, so if you want to check that one out, then that's helpful as a starting point. As Rosie said, it's very much about the medicines that you're already on, and then how you might have to change or stay on, but it's all about having that conversation with your neurologist and making an informed decision about your treatment.
What I would just to jump in and say
It's
is,
okay.
if you do take an epilepsy medicine and you read about it and you see that it could possibly affect your baby or you throughout pregnancy, it's important to continue taking that epilepsy medicine. Speaking to a neurologist or a specialist as soon as possible and getting advice from there. But I think occasionally there's been people who are really concerned and feel as though they need to stop taking the medicine, and we would recommend not doing that and to continue taking your medicine and speak to a specialist, and they'll be able to guide you to the best steps forward. I know that's not what you asked. I just think it's important.
It's a really
to
good
say.
point. I think it's whatever the outcome that you end up taking, it's really important not to stop taking that. So while you get that, while you get that information, but yeah, definitely check out that online tool, Natty Key or whoever has that question and they want to know more. Then it's really helpful. So check that one out. Court, thank you for your question. Anything that helps with fatigue?
Okay.
That's a big one as well, isn't it? Because I guess some medicines, they can have side effects of tiredness, but then it might not always be a side effect thing, is it? It can be.
It's difficult to say,
Yeah.
So we know that people with epilepsy can experience issues with their sleep, such as fatigue. And as you said, for some epilepsy medicines, it can be a side effect of it. It's sometimes good. Different people help themselves with that in different ways. So some people, it's useful to have a really sort of strict sleep schedule with yourself. But trying out different techniques and looking into different things and seeing what suits you is really helpful. If you find that it's having a really big impact on your life, you could ask to talk to a specialist or a doctor about that. There are also organisations out there that work to support people who are struggling with their sleep. So, for example, there's, I think it's called the Sleep Charity, and we don't work with them directly, but I've seen them before, and I know that they do work to support people who are struggling with that. And there's every possibility that they might have some really useful advice out there. We also do have some information on our website about it, and it gives you some tips in relation to sleep, whether that be fatigue or struggling to sleep. So yeah, it's important to see what suits you.
But it's so hard, isn't it? Like tiredness.
Yeah,
when
definitely.
it's and then it can be hard to think straight about how to manage stuff. So sometimes that can be even more challenging. But yeah, there's definitely help out there. So just keep searching. I think that charity sounds a really good one to check out.
Yeah, often if you are struggling with something in relation to epilepsy, sorry.
It's okay.
You often jump straight to epilepsy and contact us, which is fantastic. But there can be other resources out there that can be really helpful. And I often, when I'm on the phone to people, will work with each other to find useful solutions that they might find helpful, and really talk to the individual about what could suit them. Yeah, which is good. And again, if it is due to side effects, like we mentioned earlier, if you've just started on a medicine and you're really struggling with it, there is every possibility that that side effect might die down or stop altogether. And often I talk to people who are on epilepsy medicines, and if that epilepsy medicine is making them experience fatigue and they've been on it for a long time, often they find ways that sort of support them, whether that be, I don't know, the different techniques that they might use. Sometimes after a while of being on an epilepsy medicine, you find the way to sort of support yourself, which is great to hear.
Definitely.
And it can be difficult for somebody to say it might take a bit of time, because especially if you're really struggling with it.
Yeah, you want answers now, don't you?
Yeah, and I think that's fair enough.
Yeah. Just like now, but no, just hopefully that's helped, Court. But again, do come and there's lots of information on the website about sort of support places that you can get more information. So yeah, thank you for asking your question. We've had one just through from Kitty, and I don't know if you're just tuning in, but we started talking about the VNS earlier on in this session, just about vagal nerve stimulation, which is like a little pacemaker almost that you have fitted, and that helps to. Is it monitoring seizures as much as intervening?
So it's more. I mean, I wouldn't be able to say the exact ways that a vagus nerve stimulation works off the top of my head, but it's a small wire that connects to your vagus nerve. And reduces the amount of, or helps to try and reduce how much you might be affected by the electric activity that causes seizures. For a lot of people, it can be helpful in reducing how severe an epileptic seizure might be, or how much it might affect them. And for other people, it can help in stopping seizures. It's difficult to say. You could be given a magnet when you have a VNS that can be swiped over the VNS and support you in reducing the seizures that you might be affected by. But I'd really recommend having a look on our website and reading in a lot more detail than I'm able to give you off the top of my head.
There's a lot to it, but there's, people who who aren't seizure free currently, this could be a really good treatment option for them. We do you hear of a lot of people say it's
sometimes it's definitely up to the to your neurologist and the individual. I think sometimes you'll look on websites like our website and you see lots of treatments, which is great, and you can think, oh, that will definitely help me, but actually sometimes there's reasons why you may not be eligible for it or why it might not help you. So it is really good to talk to your neurologist about that and to get the advice, because they'll be the ones who are able to say if they think it might be supportive for you or not. The go-to is definitely starts with epilepsy medicine, and then along the line they may look into things like VNS.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Kitty, for that question, by the way. I didn't give you a shout out, but thank you for asking that, and hopefully that was helpful, and at least it's a conversation. If you do some research, then when you do have your next appointment, then hopefully you can have that conversation about whether it's a suitable treatment for you. Just thinking, so if you just joined in, we're here until 12:30, and we're doing a bit of a Q&A session today. I've got Rosie from our helpline who has taken time out from the helpline to actually talk to some of you today, so thank you for joining us. We've covered various topics already around VNS, pregnancy medication, new treatments, and I've got another one here just through from Ash. So she takes, I'm assuming it's she, but sorry if you're a he, Ash. I take sodium valproate. Can weight gain be a side effect of valproate? And my understanding is yes, but I'm not sure.
There's a lot of side effects to different epilepsy medicines, and for some of them it's a possibility that weight gain could be it. What can be useful, because there's so many side effects, I wouldn't suggest that I was able to know all of them off the top of my head. What you can do is look at the NHS website. So the NHS website does talk about different side effects of epilepsy medicines, and it tends to talk about the most common ones. It's quite nice to read that one. I'd recommend that if you're first looking into it.
Okay.
You could then look at something, so it's called the British National Formulary, or just BNF, and it can be quite difficult to find your way round. If you do choose to look at the BNF, it does tend to have a bit more detail on the NHS website. If you search for the medicine that you take, such as sodium valproate, it'll come up with a lot of information about sodium valproate. So for example, the dose that some people might be on, interactions it might have, a huge variety of things. And it will also talk about the side effects that somebody might experience. And from my knowledge, it does list all of its known side effects.
Mm-hmm.
So that goes from common and very common to rare.
Okay.
And there is a very big list. And often when somebody's first diagnosed, sometimes it's easier to look at the NHS one and sort of have more of an understanding, because it's such a hefty list on there. But if you're interested in learning more about that, the BNF website or the NHS website can be really helpful. If you are really struggling with side effects, as we said earlier, and I know I've repeated it a lot, you can talk to your neurologist or a medical professional and ask for some further advice with that. Because it may be that you're experiencing side effects, and it may be that it's due to something else. So it's a good idea to have a look into it, but also not to scare yourself too much on those websites.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
Because it can get so overwhelming to look at it and think, wow. And then, it might be that very few of those affect you in any way. So definitely do your research. So the BNF.
Yeah. So BNF, NHS, or in your box that you get your medicine in, you should get a...
patient leaflet.
Yeah, that's it. That's the word.
Yeah, and if you don't ask your pharmacist, sometimes if you don't get that, then do ask. But we hope that's been of help, whether you're taking valproate or any other medications and you're concerned about side effects, then definitely check out the resources that tell you. Thank you, Claire. We've had a message from Claire. She's a new and worried parent who has a teenage girl who had 2 tonic-clonic seizures over the summer, so I think she's understandably very worried. She's under treatment, but obviously her teenage daughter's had 2 tonic-clonics over the summer, and it must be really worrying to see someone really close to you go through that. So what would your words of advice be?
Well, so we get calls from parents all the time. I talk to so many parents, and I think because I've spoken to so many parents and the rest of my team, it can be helpful because we know what parents might ask or what they might not know they want to ask yet. So I would really recommend, if you feel comfortable, giving us a call, because we will work with you as much as we can to find the best ways forward. So I can briefly go over some stuff, but it might be a longer conversation that you'd like to have.
Of course.
And it does also depend on her daughter's age. So, for example, you might want to look into if she can get support at school, or what support you might think that she needs at school, which in some cases is nothing, and in other cases you'd like an independent healthcare plan put in place and risk assessments and stuff. Often people don't even know that's something to look into, because it's so overwhelming after a diagnosis of epilepsy that can be helpful. I'm unsure of her daughter's age.
I don't know. Yeah, it says teenage, but obviously it could be 13 right through to 19. So there's a lot that can happen in that. But I guess whatever stage of her education she's at, definitely have that conversation with the school or the college. Yeah,
we also have something called the Epilepsy Space. So the Epilepsy Space was designed to support people who may be starting to become more independent or going off to college or university, things like that. I can't remember the exact age range. I think it's 16 to 25, but I might have got that wrong.
No,
so
you're right.
16
to 25.
Okay, good.
I know there's so many different brackets out there, but it's 16 to 25. So
and that talks about people becoming more independent and what they might be going through. Other things to take into account would be learning about her epilepsy and how it affects her. So, because everybody's affected so differently, things like the time of day that seizures might have, or if she experiences any triggers, things like that can be really helpful. To learn more about her epilepsy, because that can really support you in supporting someone. For example, if she found that her seizures were increased if she didn't have much sleep, then that's something you can look out for and could possibly help you in reducing the amount of seizures that she experiences. Other things.
So she's 13. I've just seen.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I've just been looking while I've been listening, but she's 13. So very young still, you know,
Yeah.
and I can imagine it's been a lot for you, Claire. So I think definitely do give us a ring if you want to have a proper chat through. Something we can't always do on the live like this, but you know, a helpline is there to have that proper one-to-one, and then you can talk through.
Yeah, and we do have information about parents of children with epilepsy that might have some useful things in there, as well as online courses, which I've heard great things about, which is lovely we get to hear about that on the phone. And that's something that she might find helpful to have a look through. I often talk to people who find that it can be helpful to just put things in place that put your mind at ease a little bit. So for example, having a really strong knowledge of the first aid, so that if somebody were to have a seizure, you're confident in the steps forward that you can take. As well as safety advice. So there's safety precautions that you can put in place that just might, although it's very easy for me to say, put your mind at ease, because I'm not going through what she's going through right now, but can help to sort of possibly make things a bit easier. Just whether that's things like having a bath or a shower, or if somebody's in the room with you whilst you're in the bath, and how you're communicating with people, you know, all of that can be really helpful.
Yeah, I think just having that plan in place, isn't it? Then you feel like you're taking a little bit of control over what I can imagine might be a very difficult situation for you all at the moment. So, so definitely please get in touch. But thank you for your question. And a quick thank you to Katie, who said this live is working very well. The work you do is amazing. Well, if you knew about the technical glitches last time, Katie, but it's going a lot better this time. So thank you for your comment. That means a lot to us. And yeah, obviously the work that you do on the helpline's fab. You don't need to talk to people about that one. So thank you. Kitty, oh wow. Could emotional trauma or loss still be triggering me after over a year? That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is a tough one, and you know, we without knowing more and without our training, I wouldn't be able to say if that is definitely the case. We do know that sometimes people can have their seizures triggered. I don't know if she has epilepsy or not. I'm making a guess there, so sorry if I've misinterpreted it. But we do know that people can have seizures triggered if they're going through periods of stress, or if they're affected by, say for example, sometimes the side effects of things like if you're going through emotional trauma, and it might be affecting your sleep, or it might be causing stress, or there's a variety of things that can affect you with, that can then go on to affect your seizures. And I've definitely spoken to people who are struggling with things like bereavement maybe, that's making them go through a tough time, and that is then in turn affecting their seizures. And it is also the case that could affect her seizures directly, which is really difficult, and I'm sure not nice to hear. I definitely recommend having a look at looking after your emotional well-being. There are organisations out there that support people with things like bereavement, with your mental health, and we also have a lot of information about it on our website, because we do know that a lot of people with epilepsy can struggle with their well-being, whether that be due to affecting stress or depression or anxiety, and it's something that often you can really need support with, and we're definitely there for you if that's what you're going through. And I've mentioned them before, we even have online courses about it.
Okay.
And although they may not necessarily focus on what support she's looking for, there is information out there and in those courses that hopefully will be really helpful. But also it's another one where if you did want to contact somebody and just ask for a bit more advice about it, we're there for you.
Definitely. I think the seizures are one thing, but then our well-being and our mental health is just so inextricably linked to that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's such an important part of it. So definitely give us a call if you want to talk about that further. And then, you know, I guess you get a lot of calls about things relating to sort of mental health, and
Definitely.
It's not just about the physical seizures sometimes.
Yeah, we know that people with epilepsy are more likely to experience difficulties with their mental health than people who don't have epilepsy or aren't struggling with a disability, and that can be for a variety of reasons. So it could be due to a diagnosis, it could be due to epilepsy itself, and it can also be due to side effects, or it could be external things that are then impacting your epilepsy. And I definitely talk to people on a daily basis who are struggling with their mental health or their well-being, and it's something that everybody needs support in different ways, and we'll listen to everybody and tailor the advice that we're giving dependent on what they're going through, which is really important. But in some cases, we do find it helpful to signpost people to different organisations, and that's not necessarily because, well, it's definitely not because we're not there for them, but it's because other people might have a stronger understanding or training in things like anxiety. So, for example, Anxiety UK, that we might not necessarily have so much on. But we definitely speak to a lot of people who are struggling with it, and you're completely not alone. Although it can feel that way, you're really not.
Yeah, no, I guess that's understandable, because epilepsy affects everyone's life in so many different ways, so it's understandable that you know, that it's often, you know, we have to signpost to other organisations who can help you with that very specific thing that it might be that you want help with. So even if it doesn't feel like it's epilepsy related specifically, sometimes it can be, but you know, we can help you find a way. So please, get in touch. We've got 5 minutes left, so if anyone's got any sort of last minute questions, then please ask, just send them through, and if if we can get to them here, we will, and if we can't, then we can always answer them afterwards. So how long? It's just gone really quickly, isn't it?
Yeah, it did last week, not week, month as well.
No, it was last month, but how do you think, just talking about mental health just then, I feel like we're heading towards a very it's going to be quite a difficult winter, I think, for a lot of people. So how are you getting lots of calls on that on the helpline already?
We are a bit. We're getting calls that, and I know you released some advice about it as well, about people really struggling with. Sometimes it's even concern about what's going to happen in the future that's really affecting
concern
them.
About
And if you're say worrying about finances and stuff, which is completely understandable for a lot of people, that in turn can then affect your epilepsy because of the stress, and we do know that's a big trigger. And it is difficult to say exactly, there isn't a one
size
fits all cure, but it's good that people are looking into it and seeking support, because that's definitely the first step in making sure you're looking after yourself and understanding that it might impact you. And we've definitely spoken to a lot of people, and it is increasing how many people are talking to us about it. And we do have useful things that we're going through, whether that be talking about mindfulness. Some people find simply things like going on a walk, although that sounds really silly, and I think when you're really struggling, somebody telling you to go on a walk can be quite difficult.
Yeah, it's just like, it feels so obvious, but it can make such a difference.
Yeah, definitely. I've spoken to people who are finding just looking after their mental health and making that a priority is helping with their epilepsy. But that may not have to be the case, and it's if you are really struggling or your seizures are increasing, although it can be helpful to look at things like seizure triggers and looking at your mental health, you can also talk to your neurologist or a doctor and ask for medical support as well. Whether that even be that they're giving you medical support with your mental health, like counselling, that might be something that people could help you look into.
Definitely. Rose has just said she found that the keto diet, getting good sleep and exercise has really helped with her seizures. So I guess that it goes back to a bit of that point of just doing the things that will help, that looking after your mental health, looking after your physical well-being.
Yeah, it's
even
funny.
if everything else is chaos around us, I think it's just taking that time to. We got this in COVID. I remember when the pandemic sort of kicked off. We had a lot of people get in touch to sort of share tips of what had helped them, and really obvious things like exercise and going to bed, getting a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Just doing things that help you, I think, made such a difference in what's like a very uncertain time. I think. Yeah.
I've definitely spoken to people before, and I've listed some of the really common seizure triggers, and they've said, "Oh, so looking after myself," and you're just like, "Well, actually, it is just looking after, as you said, the common things like making sure you have enough sleep, trying to reduce the amount of stress you're going through, and sort of, as you said, the obvious things can actually be really helpful."
Definitely. this feels a very important question, so I don't want to leave it really. But Constance just asked, is there any advice for children of parents with epilepsy who get bullied because so the parent has epilepsy? This is my understanding. Their parent's got epilepsy, and so the child's getting bullied because their parent has seizures, and that must be really hard because you also must be very caring for your parent and wanting to protect them, but then also having to deal with people at school. That must be really tough. What would you say?
I think, it's another one where it is different in different circumstances, and everybody's child's different and everybody's family's different. And there's some things, steps forward that you could take that I'd suggest now, but again, it may not be the way forward for you. So that can include talking to the school, and possibly talking to the parents of the children if you feel as though that would be helpful for you. There should be people at schools who might be able to support their children, which is useful. You can talk to the school in general and ask if there's any support for children there. We also have the sort of books or stories for children whose parents have epilepsy, and that just helps to teach the child about epilepsy, which can be really helpful. I know that's not what you were focusing on in that message, but I think it's important to let you know that that's out there. And we do know that bullying is something that people with epilepsy or people who have a family member or a friend affected by epilepsy do go through, and that's really difficult. And I've spoken to a number of people who maybe not going through the exact same experience, but going through similar experiences. And as you said, it can be really hard. But there are steps forward you can take, like contacting the school, like talking to parents, like trying to educate people about epilepsy.
That's such a really important word, education. Often the bullying is coming, not that it's justified, but it's often coming from a place of people not understanding. So I think if you can do that education and help people to understand, then it might not solve it straight away, but at least it will be taking some practical steps to tackle them. But I'm sorry if that's what you're going through, if you're asking that. But definitely talk to the school and talk to others about this.
And it must be really hard to see a child go through that. So although it sounds silly to say, it's also important to look after your mental health.
Definitely, yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, look, your child might be going through a really difficult time, and it's so great to hear that you're contacting us supporting your child, because that must be hard to do. But looking after yourself as well is really important. And I've said it so many times, so I'm sure it's annoying to hear, but give us a call and we'll, because sometimes the more detail we have, the better advice we can give, whether that's the age of the child the school are going to, who might be best in your area. Sometimes there's groups in local areas that can be really helpful, and what might be best for your child. So,
exactly. So, I mean, that leads us nicely. I was going to mention the helpline number. It's 0808 800 50 50. So that's a free phone number. So give us a call. It's often easier to have that kind of one-to-one chat and give us more information. And you can also email helpline@epilepsy.org.uk. And I think you just touched on a point there about we do have sort of virtual and local groups as well. So sometimes one-to-one support is really good, but also sometimes you just might want that group where you're meeting other people, because epilepsy can feel quite isolating at times. So I think group stuff is really important as much as talking to someone on the phone. So if you head to our website at epilepsy.org.uk, there's loads of information about our support groups as well as the helpline. That's we're going to wrap up now for our sort of Q&A, but we're going to be bringing another one back in about a month or so. So if you've got any questions or themes that you want us to talk about, then please send them in advance, drop us a DM, or tune in. But thank you very much for everyone, and we will see you soon.